I'm unemployed now, just like you wanted. You'll have to cover the mortgage yourself. Zendaya was planning to play a joke on her husband, Killian, after getting a promotion at work. But then she overheard a conversation that changed everything. Zendaya Adaya never imagined an ordinary Tuesday would flip her entire life upside down. May 22nd was a rare sunny day, as if nature itself was whispering, "Get ready, everything's about to change." But how can you ever predict where the wind of change will blow from? Lately, Zendaya, who was 38, often felt that life had become a closed loop. Home, work, like a forgotten throwback tune. It seemed all the big, important turning points of her destiny were already in the rearview mirror, and all that was left was a smooth, gradual drift toward retirement. Her mother always said, "Life truly begins after 40. Guess we'll see." Zendaya pulled her 15-year-old Nissan Altima into the staff parking lot. The car was old but reliable, despite Killian's constant nagging to trade it in for something nicer. Trade it for what? Another crippling loan? She'd always counter. Right now, as they barely managed the mortgage on their 3-bedroom condo in Southside Atlanta, talk of a new car felt completely unserious. The Carver Building Business Center greeted her with its usual morning buzz. Mr. Curtis, the older security guard, who was a former military man, was sipping coffee from his thermos and reading the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. "Morning, Ms. Adaya," he greeted her warmly. "That Falcons game last night, they put a hurting on those opponents, didn't they? Right up there with the old '99 season. You remember that?" "I remember, Mr. Curtis, I remember," Zendaya replied with a smile, though she'd never followed football. "How are your grandkids?" she asked. "Growing like weeds. The youngest one already knows his multiplication tables. Can you believe it? My wife, though, she's still canning everything in sight. Our cellar is packed. I ask her, 'Why so much, woman?' And she tells me, 'You remember the recession in '08? That's why.'" Zendaya nodded as she headed toward the elevator. Mr. Curtis was right. The generation that lived through lean times never fully shook the habit of stocking up. She and Killian also had jars of pickled cucumbers and stewed peaches in their pantry, which she canned at the family land every summer, even though you could buy anything in the store now. The marketing department was already a hive of activity. The coffee machine was humming, the printer spat out sheets of paper, and phones rang off the hook. Across the partition, Shonda was passionately discussing a recent episode of The Wire with Ms. Serena. "Can you believe that guy got himself into trouble again?" she exclaimed. "And his wife? She's a dead ringer for my mother-in-law." "I was canning tomatoes yesterday," sighed Ms. Serena. "I wanted to try that old-school chow-chow recipe, you know, the one with the cabbage and peppers. My grandmother used to make it." "Oh, share the recipe," chimed in Keisha, a young employee fresh out of Morehouse Business School. "I made my man a batch, and he ate the whole thing in one sitting." Zendaya hung her jacket, set her bag on her desk, and looked around her small, private office, separated by a glass wall, a perk of being a senior manager. On the wall, there was a calendar with inspirational quotes, a birthday gift from her colleagues. On her desk sat a photo of her and Killian vacationing by the coast in Hilton Head 3 years ago. It was their last real vacation. Then the mortgage trouble started, requiring them to take on extra work, and beach trips became a distant dream. Zendaya spread out her papers, turned on her computer, and started the electric kettle. Her slender fingers, the only luxury she allowed herself with a neatly done acrylic manicure, began to fly across the keyboard. She needed to finalize the quarterly report for the marketing campaign of a national retail chain. The work was almost done, needing only a few final tweaks. "Good morning, Busy Bee." A cheerful voice came from the doorway. Amari Dixon stood there with 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you could use some rocket fuel," he said. "Bet you were up late finishing that report." Zendaya smiled gratefully. How did he know? She had been up late editing the figures. Killian had already been asleep when she got home and was gone before she woke up. Lately, they barely saw each other. "Thank you, Amari. You're a lifesaver." She took a sip. "Cinnamon cappuccino, just how I like it." After working together for this long, I know all your weaknesses, Amari winked, perching on the edge of her desk. How's your big account? Tamed it yet? Almost. Just a couple of charts to fix, and it's ready. Zendaya reached for her document folder. How about you? Making headway with the electronics account. Yeah, that's a tangled web, Amari began, but he was interrupted by Sable, the young secretary with bright pink nails and a matching blouse, who burst into the office without knocking. Ms. Adaya, Mr. Davenport is calling for you, she chirped, adjusting her high ponytail. Right now. Urgent. Zendaya's heart did a traitorous flip. The report? Did something go wrong? She'd checked everything 3 times. 38 years old, and she still felt like a terrified freshman when called before the boss. Her palms instantly got sweaty, and her mouth went dry. Is everything okay? Amari asked, concerned, noticing the change in her expression. I don't know. Zendaya stood up, smoothed down her smart pencil skirt, and adjusted her beige blouse. Maybe it's about the retail chain, although I haven't submitted the final report yet. Don't worry, Amari said, squeezing her elbow reassuringly. Mr. Davenport is tough, but fair. Besides, you're the best marketer in the company. He knows that. If only, Zendaya thought, heading toward the CEO's office. In her 8 years at the company, she had learned a lot, but every call on the carpet still triggered panic. Maybe it was her upbringing? Her mother always used to say, "You have to respect the boss and keep your head down. That's how you stay in good standing." That habit was so ingrained that even at 38, and 40 was coming soon, Zendaya couldn't shake it. The CEO's reception area was impressive in its size and decor, a massive mahogany desk, leather sofas for visitors, abstract art on the walls, and enormous planters with tropical foliage. It all spoke to the status of the office's owner. Sable slipped behind her desk and pressed a button on the phone. Mr. Davenport, Ms. Adaya is here. Send her in. The low voice boomed through the speaker. Zendaya took a deep breath and opened the door to the inner sanctum, the office of Mr. Sterling Davenport, CEO of Alpha Market. Mr. Davenport, a man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair at his temples and a sharp gaze, sat behind a huge mahogany table, reading something on his computer. Seeing Zendaya, he looked up and gestured to the chair opposite him. Zendaya, have a seat. Mr. Davenport adjusted his thin, gold-rimmed glasses. Tea? Coffee? No, thank you, Zendaya mumbled, feeling her heart pound somewhere in her throat. The last time they spoke one-on-one was a month ago when they discussed the strategy for the retail account. Mr. Davenport leaned back in his chair, tented his fingers, and looked at Zendaya intently. That stare always unnerved her. It felt like the boss could see right through her, all her mistakes, all her shortcomings, all her doubts. Well, I won't beat around the bush, he began, and Zendaya felt her stomach clench. The board of directors and I have conferred and decided. He paused, and Zendaya's heart nearly stopped. To offer you the position of head of marketing. Zendaya blinked, once, twice. A roar filled her ears, like she was standing on the shore of Hilton Head, where waves crashed against the pier with a force that drowned out all thought. I'm the department head? She asked, her lips barely moving. Why are you so surprised? Mr. Davenport chuckled, his stern face softening unexpectedly. You've been with the company 8 years. You know every process like the back of your hand. The staff respects you. It's a predominantly female team, and they need a firm but fair hand, yours. But Mr. Thornton, Zendaya began, referring to the current department head with whom she had always had a difficult relationship. Mr. Thornton is moving to the corporate headquarters, Mr. Davenport interrupted. He'll be overseeing all the regional branches, and we need someone in his place who won't drop the ball. You understand the times are challenging, and the competition is growing like wildfire. We need fresh ideas and a new approach. I personally reviewed all your campaigns over the last year. It's impressive, especially the retail chain work. Sales increased by 30%. Zendaya was speechless. Her mind was a jumble of thoughts and emotions. Head of the department. That meant a completely different level of responsibility, a different salary, and a different status. I don't know if I can handle it, she admitted honestly. Managing a whole department. Zendaya! Mr. Davenport cut her off. I'm not offering this lightly. The company is growing. We need people who grow with it, who are ready to take responsibility and aren't afraid of a challenge. I see your potential. He opened a folder in front of him. Here are your performance metrics for the last quarter, 30% higher than the other managers. You know how to handle clients, you understand the market, and you have an analytical mind. What else does a good leader need? Self-confidence, maybe, Zendaya smiled weakly. That's something you earn on the job. Mr. Davenport pushed some papers toward her. Here is the draft order for your appointment. Take a look. The salary increases by 40%, plus quarterly bonuses, a company car, and a personal parking space. What do you say? Zendaya quickly scanned the document lines. The salary figure made her heart race even faster. With that kind of money, they could not only pay the mortgage without stress, but also start a savings account. She could even think about the second child she and Killian had once dreamed of but postponed due to financial difficulties. I accept, she breathed out. Excellent. Mr. Davenport handed her a pen. Sign here and here. You start your new duties on Monday. In the meantime, I suggest you familiarize yourself with the department's current projects and prepare a work plan for the next quarter. You'll present it to me on Monday. Zendaya walked out of the CEO's office on shaky legs. She clutched the copy of the order in her hands, afraid it would disappear if she relaxed her grip. A promotion. A real, serious promotion. Good heavens, only this morning she was worrying about barely scraping together the mortgage payment for their 3-bedroom in a cookie-cutter neighborhood. Now she could even start saving for repairs on the family land, the half-acre her parents had left her, where they still planted vegetables every summer just in case. Times were just so uncertain. Well, were you hauled over the coals? Amari, her colleague and the only man in the department besides the courier, poked his head in with another cup of coffee. Judging by your face, it was a rough one. Another budget issue? Zendaya looked up at him, unsure whether to laugh or cry. She wanted to scream with joy, hug someone, and share the news, but something held her back. What if I jinx it? Their workplace, like any other, had a mix of people. Some would genuinely be happy for her, but others would be envious and start causing trouble. Amari, you won't believe it, she started, then stopped herself. She didn't want to blurt out the news to the whole department before the official announcement. Besides, Amari himself might have been up for the job, even though he'd been at the company for less time. I'll tell you later, okay? How about we go to the diner after work and celebrate something? A tease, are we? Amari playfully shook his finger. Now, I won't be able to work all day because of curiosity. What happened? Did you get a bonus for the retail project? Something like that, Zendaya answered evasively. All right, get back to work before you really don't get anything done. Amari shook his head and left the office. Zendaya finally allowed herself a wide smile. She and Amari had been friends since he joined the company 5 years ago. He was smart, with a gentle sense of humor, nothing like the stereotypical big spenders who flashed their designer labels in the business world of the 90s. In another life, if she hadn't married Killian. Stop, what am I thinking? Zendaya scolded herself. She and Killian had been together for 12 years. They met at a friend's birthday party and married 6 months later. Head over heels into trouble was how Mama Alara, Zendaya's grandmother, described it back then, the only person in the family who was against the marriage. But does youth ever listen to age? Especially since Mama Alara was suspicious of all men after Zendaya's grandfather left her for a younger woman. They're all cut from the same cloth, her grandmother used to repeat, shaking her head. Maybe that's why Zendaya never introduced Killian to her grandmother before the wedding. Or perhaps deep down she was afraid the perceptive Mama Alara would see something in the groom that the lovesick granddaughter couldn't. The phone on her desk rang, pulling Zendaya from her thoughts. She checked the caller ID. Killian. Zendaya, are you going to be late today? Her husband's voice sounded strained. Strange. Why, what's wrong? She asked, immediately on edge. Lately, Killian often stayed late at work, citing important meetings and negotiations. Sometimes he returned after midnight, smelling of expensive cognac and cigars. Clients like a casual setting, he'd explain, kissing her cheek. Nothing, Killian drew out the word. I just need to talk about something. I have news. I do too, Zendaya thought, looking at the order on her desk. And then it hit her. What if I play a trick on him? Tell him she'd been fired, watch his reaction, and then surprise him with the news of the promotion. 40% more salary was no joke. It was almost a solution to all their financial woes. You know, Killian. Her voice trembled with feigned anxiety. I also need to talk to you. Something important happened at work. What happened? Did they fire you? Something in Killian's voice shifted, as if he tensed up. So he is worried about our finances, Zendaya thought warmly. In recent months, they had often argued about money. Killian worked as a manager at a car dealership, but sales weren't great. The economy's rough, people are cutting back, he'd explain, coming home irritable. Zendaya tried to be supportive, but sometimes it felt like he blamed everyone for his failures. The boss, the clients, the government, and even her. Listen, I didn't want to do this over the phone, but... Zendaya made a dramatic pause. Yes, can you believe it? Mr. Davenport called me in and... Damn! I told you that's how it would end! Killian interrupted her, his voice suddenly sharp. I told you to take that other project, but you kept saying, I can handle it, idiot. Zendaya froze, her mouth open. Idiot. In 12 years of marriage, he had never called her that. Argue? Yes. Fight? Of course, but never insults. Never. What did you say? She asked in a strange, distant voice. I'm sorry. Killian's tone changed instantly. I'm just in a meeting right now and I'm stressed. You caught me off guard. Can you tell me the details tonight? I gotta go. The line went dead. Zendaya slowly put down the receiver, feeling a strange tightness inside. The joke had failed. Miserably. And what was that all about? Why had Killian reacted that way? She tried to get back to work, but her thoughts scattered. She could only see her husband's face, a look she'd seen months ago when he came home tipsy from a corporate party and picked a fight over the pot roast being underseasoned. He had been irritable then, snapping over nothing, but he never crossed the line into insults. The phone rang again. Zendaya jumped. Killian? Hello? She cautiously answered. Zendaya, honey. How are you? Mama Alara's voice was cheerful, despite her 83 years. You haven't visited in a while. I miss you. Grandma, Zendaya sighed in relief. I miss you too. I've just been so busy with work. Work isn't going to run away into the woods, her grandmother scoffed, and Zendaya smiled. She had heard that saying countless times in her childhood. Come over today, okay? I baked an apple pie, the kind you love, and I opened a jar of last year's raspberry compote. Remember it? I remember, Grandma. Tears suddenly welled up in Zendaya's eyes. I got a promotion today. I'm the head of marketing. Oh, congratulations, honey, Mama Alara cheered sincerely. I always knew you were a smart girl. See, things are working out. And your Killian, is he happy? Zendaya hesitated. I haven't told him yet. Well, I did, but I joked that I was fired. Why? Her grandmother asked, surprised. I don't know, Zendaya admitted honestly. It was a stupid joke. He got really angry. Angry? A note of caution crept into her grandmother's voice. Angry that you were fired? He should have been supportive. Exactly, Zendaya said, twirling a pencil in her hands. I didn't expect that reaction. Oh, Zendaya, Mama Alara sighed. I always said you can't trust men. They only think about themselves. Remember your grandpa? But never mind that. Just tell me, will you come by today? We'll celebrate your promotion. It's a big deal. I can't, Grandma, Zendaya replied regretfully. I have to talk to Killian. He said he has some news, too. Fine, the old woman agreed. Just promise me you'll come this weekend and bring Killian too. I want to meet him finally. You've been married 12 years and I've only seen him in pictures. I promise, Zendaya said, even though she knew Killian would probably find an excuse not to go. He always did, work, an important meeting, or a headache. After talking to her grandmother, Zendaya again tried to focus on work. She urgently needed to finalize the retail report and prepare the presentation for the Monday meeting. But her thoughts kept returning to Killian's reaction. Idiot. Why did he say that? Maybe it was just stress, a nervous outburst? Anything could happen, especially if he was in an important meeting. Although his tone didn't sound like he was in any meeting, it sounded more like he was home. She dialed his number. "The subscriber is temporarily unavailable," a mechanical voice announced. Strange. He turned off his phone? That was unlike him, especially if he was really in a meeting. Clients might call at any moment. A feeling of anxiety lingered. Zendaya went to the window, looking down at the business district. People were rushing, couriers were delivering packages, and taxis were picking up passengers. A normal day, but somehow it felt like something significant was about to happen. "Everything all right?" Amari appeared in the doorway with some papers. "You seem off today." "Yeah, just some home stuff," Zendaya waved him off. "Amari, could you finish the tables for the retail account? I can't concentrate on anything today." Amari looked at her intently. Something serious happened. Genuine concern resonated in his voice. "I don't know," Zendaya answered honestly. "Killian has been acting strange lately, and today—" She stumbled, not wanting to mention the failed joke. "Today I joked that I was fired and he got angry and called me an idiot." Amari frowned. "That doesn't sound like support," he observed. "But maybe he's having problems at work? Or he just didn't get the joke?" "Maybe," Zendaya nodded, grateful for his attempt to find an explanation. "You know, I think I'm going to leave early today. I'm going home to talk to him properly." "What about our celebration at the diner?" Amari smiled. "Another time, okay?" Zendaya smiled weakly in return. "I feel like it's important to sort things out with Killian today. Something's not right, Amari. My gut tells me." "Woman's intuition," he said, slightly raising an eyebrow. "They say it never fails." "They say," Zendaya echoed, "but I don't really trust mine." Amari moved closer and gently squeezed her shoulder. "Everything will be fine, Zendaya, and if not, I'm always here. Remember that." Something flashed in his eyes that made Zendaya feel warm and anxious at the same time. She had long noticed Amari's special attention, but she always tried not to read into it. They were just friends, colleagues, nothing more. Mr. Davenport was surprised when Zendaya asked to leave early, but didn't object. "Of course, Zendaya, you've earned a little rest. A promotion like this is stressful, even if it's a good kind. Just don't forget the presentation on Monday. You need to impress the department." "I won't forget," she promised, and hurried toward the exit. May was hot, like July. Zendaya took off her jacket, remaining in her light blouse, and headed for the parking lot. On the way, she dialed her husband's number again. Still unavailable, her heart squeezed with a bad feeling. What if something happened to him? An accident? No, that was ridiculous. He was just in a meeting where he couldn't answer the phone, or in the subway where there was no signal. Their condo was in a typical high-rise built in the late 80s in a large working-class neighborhood. Zendaya and Killian had bought it 5 years ago when housing prices briefly dipped. They took out a 15-year mortgage, barely scraping together the down payment. Their parents helped where they could, but they raised the main sum themselves, denying themselves everything. Zendaya remembered how proud they were to get the keys to their own place. It wasn't a brand new building, and the renovations weren't finished, but it was theirs, their little nest. The drive from the office to the condo usually took about an hour if there wasn't traffic. Today the roads were clear, and Zendaya made it in 40 minutes. She parked near the building, turned off the engine, and just sat for a few minutes, gathering her thoughts. What would she say to Killian? How would she explain coming home so early? And was he even home? She checked her phone. He still hadn't called back. Oh well, here goes nothing. Zendaya got out of the car and walked toward the entrance. In the elevator, she rode with her neighbor, Miss Beatrice, a retired woman who knew all the gossip in the building and was happy to share it. "Can you believe it, Zendaya? Another scandal in Unit 14, the old woman rattled on. That girl caught her man with the clerk from the corner store. There was so much screaming, the whole building came running." "You don't say," Zendaya replied distractedly, thinking about her own problems. "And how's your husband? Still working hard?" Miss Beatrice inquired. "I saw him around noon today. Did he take the day off?" Zendaya froze. "Noon. Are you sure?" "Of course I'm sure," the neighbor huffed. "I was just coming back from the clinic, and he was walking out of the building. I even wondered why he was home in the middle of the day. Maybe he was feeling under the weather." The elevator stopped on their floor, and Zendaya, mumbling, "Excuse me, I'm in a hurry," quickly headed toward her condo. So Killian had been home at noon. Not in a meeting, not at work. Home, and with his phone off. Why? She quietly inserted the key in the lock and cautiously turned it. The door opened silently. She had oiled the hinges recently. The light was on in the hall. "Killian," Zendaya called out, taking off her shoes. "Are you home?" Silence. Maybe the neighbor was mistaken? Confused Killian with someone else? And then she heard voices coming from the kitchen. One definitely belonged to her husband. The second was a woman's. Zendaya froze, holding her breath. Her heart pounded like crazy. No, it can't be what she was thinking. Killian would never. He couldn't. She tiptoed to the kitchen and listened. "Are you sure she has no idea?" the female voice asked. 100%, Killian snorted. "That idiot believes everything I tell her. 12 years she's believed it. Can you imagine?" Zendaya felt the floor disappear from under her. She grabbed the wall to keep from falling. Idiot. He called her an idiot behind her back. The man she had trusted for 12 years. 12 years, that's a long run, the woman replied with a laugh. Her voice was young, slightly husky. "But you said she has a rich grandmother, with a condo downtown." "Rich is an understatement," Killian chirped up. "A 3-bedroom brownstone in the West End. Can you believe it? You can't find properties like that anymore. 3-meter ceilings, huge rooms, a gold mine. The old lady is tough, but she's 83. She won't last forever." "And you're sure the condo will go to Zendaya after she passes?" The woman sounded doubtful. 100%. She's the only living relative. Her grandma adores her and will leave everything to her. Although Zendaya hasn't been visiting her lately, I made sure of that. It's always work or a headache or, "Let's do it next week." So their relationship isn't that close, even though Zendaya tries to maintain it. But what if the grandma changes her mind? "She won't," Killian answered confidently. "Zendaya has no idea, but I've already taken care of everything. I found an attorney who drafted the will properly. The condo goes to Zendaya, and since we're legally married, half of it is mine," the woman finished. "Smart," Killian chuckled. "But we still have to wait for the old lady to kick the bucket. And who knows when that will be?" "That's not a problem." Killian lowered his voice, and Zendaya had to strain to hear. "I have a plan. Remember my friend Sean? He works at a nursing home. He says we can get Mama Alara admitted there for rehabilitation. The rest is easy. Old people die like flies there. No one asks why. And Zendaya and I, as the legal heirs—" "Killian, you're a monster," the woman giggled. "What if your wife refuses to put her grandma in a nursing home?" "She'll agree," Killian said confidently. "I constantly feed her lines about our serious financial situation. The mortgage, the debts. Then I'll suggest selling the grandma's condo, buying something simpler, and paying off all our debts. We'll even have enough for a new car. It'll be impossible to resist." "And if the grandma thing doesn't work out?" The woman seemed to light a cigarette. Zendaya caught the scent of smoke. "Then I have a backup plan." Killian also lit up. "Divorce. I can always demand a division of assets. The condo in Southside is in both our names, so half of it is mine." "But what's the point? That condo is worth pennies compared to the one in the West End." "Something is better than nothing," Killian sighed. Worst comes to worst, I'll wait a little longer. I didn't play this loving husband act for all these years for nothing." They both burst out laughing, and the sound sliced through Zendaya's heart like a razor. She recoiled from the door, feeling nauseous. 12 years. All this time he was with her for her grandmother's condo. Their marriage, an act. Their plans, their dreams of a child, their everything. A lie. Flashes of memory rushed through her mind. How Killian always tried to talk her out of visiting her grandmother. How tense he got when the will came up. How subtly he suggested sending Mama Alara to a good assisted living facility where she would be better cared for than we ever could. Back then, Zendaya thought it was a display of care. "You need to leave," Killian suddenly said. "Zendaya might be back." "But you said she'd be late today. Something about work?" "She called this afternoon and said she was fired. She might show up early. I don't want to risk it." "Fired?" The woman whistled in surprise. "Then you definitely need to sort out the grandma's condo. You won't be able to handle the mortgage without her paycheck." "That's what I'm saying," Killian grumbled. 12 years I put up with it, and this cow can't even keep her job." "All right, I'm going," the woman said. "I'll call you tonight." Zendaya frantically looked around. They would come out of the kitchen now and see her. She had to leave immediately. She tiptoed to the front door, quietly unlocked the deadbolt, and slipped out onto the landing. Her heart was hammering so loudly she thought the entire building could hear it. She went down one flight of stairs and stopped, trying to catch her breath. "What now? Where do I go? What do I do?" Her head was a mess of overheard fragments, and each one was more painful than the last. "That idiot believes everything I tell her. 83. She won't last forever. I've already taken care of everything." Zendaya suddenly remembered that a year ago, her grandmother was hospitalized with a suspected stroke. The doctors never made a definitive diagnosis, but prescribed a ton of medication. Killian had volunteered to buy the drugs and take them to Mama Alara himself. "You're too busy with work," he'd said. Could it be? Could he have switched the medication? The thought made Zendaya feel even sicker. She went down the stairs and out onto the street. May was generous with its warmth. The sun bathed the courtyard. Children played loudly on the playground. Mothers discussed the latest gossip. Normal life, which had been her life just a couple of hours ago, now it felt like a set for someone else's play. Zendaya got into her car but didn't start the engine. She took out her phone and aimlessly scrolled through her contacts. Who should she call? Who could she tell? Her mother? She lived in another state. And what would she say? "I told you not to rush into marriage. I told you to look closely at him." Her friends? Over the years of marriage and endless work, almost all her connections had faded. All that was left were formal relationships with colleagues. Her finger stopped on Amari's name. He always understood her without a word, always supportive. "And if not, I'm always here." "Remember that," he had said today, as if he knew. She hit call, her hands shaking. "Zendaya?" Amari's voice sounded surprised. "You're home already? Is everything all right?" Her voice broke, and she coughed, trying to hold back a sob. "Amari, can I meet you right now?" "Of course." She heard some rustling on the line. "What happened? Where are you?" "Near the condo. Well, not exactly. Sitting in the car." "Killian?" Amari asked cautiously. "Yes," she whimpered. "No, I mean, it's a long story. Can we talk somewhere?" "There's that little diner by Mr. Curtis's place, near Northside Drive. You know the one?" "The one. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Can you make it?" "I can." Zendaya wiped away her tears with the back of her hand. "Thank you, Amari." "Don't mention it. Hang in there. I'm on my way." Zendaya started the car and slowly drove out of the parking lot. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw a young blonde in a short dress come out of the building and get into a red Volkswagen. Killian was seeing her off, standing by the door. Zendaya instinctively ducked to avoid being seen and pressed the gas. The diner was a small, cozy spot that served inexpensive blue plate specials for office workers and complete dinners for seniors. The interior was reminiscent of an old-school luncheonette, checkered tablecloths, simple chairs, and reproductions of cityscapes on the walls. Zendaya sometimes ate lunch there when she worked from home. She chose a booth in the corner, far from the windows, and ordered tea. Her hands were still trembling, and she had to clench her fingers to stop the shaking. Fragments of the overheard conversation spun in her head, mixing with memories from 12 years ago. How they met through mutual friends, how charmingly Killian courted her. Flowers, restaurants, compliments, how he proposed after a jazz concert, dropping to one knee right on the street. And all of it was an act. For her grandmother's condo. Zendaya. Amari appeared so suddenly that she jumped. Sorry? Did I scare you? No, I was just lost in thought. She smiled weakly. Amari sat across from her, looking at her intently. Concern was written all over his face. What happened? Did you fight with your husband? If only. Zendaya shook her head. Amari, you won't believe it. I still don't believe it myself. Tell me. He covered her hand with his. Anything. I'm listening. And Zendaya told him haltingly, jumping from one topic to the next, but laying out everything. The promotion, the stupid joke about being fired, Killian's strange reaction, and the overheard conversation. With every word, she felt lighter, as if the weight inside was slowly melting away, giving way to a dull ache and emptiness. 12 years, Amari, she whispered, weeping again. 12 years he was pretending, and I really loved him. Truly loved him. Maybe you misunderstood something? Amari suggested cautiously. Who knows what they were talking about? I understood perfectly. Zendaya smiled bitterly. That idiot believes everything I tell her. 12 years she's believed it. What's there to misunderstand? He married me for my grandmother's condo, and, judging by everything... She trailed off, unable to voice the horrible suspicion. Judging by what? Amari frowned. He's even ready to hurt my grandmother, Zendaya finished quietly. He talked about a nursing home where old people die like flies and that he found some lawyer who drafted the will properly. Amari, I'm scared. What if he's already done something? I need to go to Grandma's right now. Let's go, Amari said decisively, standing up. I'm with you. You remember the address? Of course. Zendaya stood up too. The West End, 16th Street, apartment 54. I grew up there. On the way to her grandmother's, Zendaya nervously tapped her fingers on the steering wheel. Amari sat beside her, occasionally glancing at her with worry. Maybe I should drive, he offered. You're too agitated. No, I'm fine. Zendaya shook her head. At least this keeps me busy, or I'll go crazy thinking about it. The car moved slowly through the evening Atlanta traffic, rush hour, the worst possible time for driving across the city. Zendaya became increasingly agitated. I'm going to try calling Grandma, she said, dialing the number on speakerphone. Long rings. 1, 2, 3, no answer. Maybe she can't hear it, Amari suggested. Older people often. Grandma hears perfectly, Zendaya interrupted, and she always keeps her phone on her. I bought her a simple flip phone with big buttons specifically for that, and she never, you hear me, never leaves a call unanswered. She dialed the number again, same result. Damn it! Zendaya hit the steering wheel with her palm. I should have gone straight there, not to the diner. Don't blame yourself, Amari said gently. You were in shock. It's normal. Nothing about this is normal, Zendaya grumbled, peering at the road. How could I have been so blind? 12 years. Mom told me even back then, it's too fast. Look at him more closely. And I said, he loves me, Mom. I feel it. Idiot. A real idiot. Stop. Amari gently touched her shoulder. You're not an idiot. You just trusted a man you loved. There's nothing shameful in that. But how could I not notice? Zendaya shook her head. Now, looking back, I see so many strange things. How tense he always got when Grandma came up. How he didn't want to meet her. how cautiously he fished for details about the will. "We never see what we don't want to see," Amari said philosophically, "especially when it comes to loved ones." Zendaya threw a quick glance at him. His profile against the darkening sky looked so familiar, yet somehow new. Strangely, it was now, on this terrible day, that she thought of Amari not just as a friend and colleague for the first time. "Look!" he suddenly exclaimed. "You can cut right there through the side streets." Zendaya turned as he suggested. Indeed, the traffic was lighter here. "How do you know this neighborhood?" she asked, surprised. "I grew up here," Amari smiled. "In that apartment building, see? Then my parents sold the place, and we moved to the suburbs." "Wow, I never knew that." Zendaya felt a stab of shame. They had worked together for so many years, and she knew almost nothing about his life outside the office. "My grandmother and I could have been neighbors." "Maybe," Amari nodded. "Fate. It's a funny thing." For the rest of the drive, they were silent, each lost in their own thoughts. Zendaya mentally ran through the possible scenarios. What would she say to Killian when and if she returned home? How would she live her life now? Where would she go? And what about her grandmother? Maybe she should take her in, but under the same roof as Killian? No, that was impossible. "We're here," Zendaya announced, parking near the old stately brownstone with facade decorations. "Grandma lives on the 4th floor. The elevator breaks down often, so we might have to walk." "I'm ready for the 10th floor without an elevator," Amari assured her, getting out of the car. Fortunately, the elevator was working. Going up to the 4th floor, Zendaya went straight to the door she had known since childhood, bearing the bronze number 54. She rang the bell. Silence. She rang again, holding the button longer. Still no reaction. "Grandma!" Zendaya started knocking on the door. "Grandma, it's me, Zendaya! Open up!" An older woman in a bathrobe peeked out from the neighboring apartment. "Why are you knocking? No one's home. The ambulance came earlier today. They took your grandmother away." Zendaya's legs felt weak. "They took her? Where? What's wrong with her?" "How should I know?" The neighbor shrugged. "I saw them carrying her out on a stretcher through the window. She seemed conscious, saying goodbye to everyone." "Who called the ambulance?" "I don't know. Maybe she called herself?" "Which hospital?" "They didn't say. Something like Grady Memorial, but I'm not sure." The neighbor, Ms. Beatrice, looked at them suspiciously. "And who are you exactly?" "I'm her granddaughter," Zendaya managed to say. "Her only relative." "Oh, it's you, Zendaya." The woman's face softened. "Alara often talks about you, always praising you, saying how smart you are. I'm Ms. Beatrice. We've been neighbors for 30 years. Would you like some tea? I just baked a sweet potato pie." "Thank you, but we need to rush to the hospital." Zendaya was already pulling out her phone. "Do you know who exactly called the ambulance?" "Who knows?" Ms. Beatrice spread her hands. "Maybe your husband? He came by today." Zendaya froze. "My husband?" "Yes, the distinguished one in the suit," the neighbor nodded. "I hadn't seen him before, but he said he was Zendaya's husband. He came around 2 in the afternoon. Then I didn't see him again. Maybe he left while I ran to the store." Zendaya and Amari exchanged glances. The same question was in both their eyes. What was Killian doing at Mama Alara's? "Thank you so much, Ms. Beatrice." Zendaya forced a smile. "We're heading to the hospital." When they left the building, Zendaya clutched her head. It was him. He did something to Grandma. First, he visited her, and then they had to call the ambulance. "Amari, what do we do?" "First, calm down," Amari said firmly. "We don't know for sure what happened. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Let's call Grady and find out if Alara is there." He took out his phone and found the number for the emergency department. After a few minutes of talking with the charge nurse, Amari got confirmation. Yes, Alara Adaya was admitted today with a suspected stroke. Her condition is stable, but visitors are prohibited for now. "A stroke?" Zendaya repeated when he relayed the information. She had a suspected stroke a year ago, but the diagnosis wasn't confirmed then. She suddenly stopped. Oh, God. What if it was Killian then, too? What if he somehow gave her something? Don't jump to conclusions, Amari squeezed her hand. Your grandmother is 83. Health problems at that age are common. You don't have to assume malice. But the timing is too perfect. Zendaya shook her head. First, he tells his mistress about the plan with the nursing home, where old people die like flies. Then he goes to Grandma's, and a couple of hours later, an ambulance takes her away. I don't believe in coincidences like that. Amari thought for a moment. All right, let's be logical. If he really did something, it should leave traces. The hospital can run tests and identify foreign substances. If they look, Zendaya noted grimly, they'll probably just chalk it up to age and chronic illness. Who would think to test an 83-year-old woman for poisoning? Then we need to go to the police, Amari said decisively. We'll tell them about our suspicions. With what? Zendaya smiled bitterly. Hello, I overheard my husband talking to his mistress, and I think he wants to poison my grandmother for her condo. They'll laugh us out of the precinct. What if we find the woman? Amari suggested. Did you see her? Can you identify her? A glimpse from the back, Zendaya shrugged. A young blonde in a short dress. There are a million of those in Atlanta. They got back into the car but didn't rush to leave. Zendaya leaned back in the seat, closing her eyes. You know what the worst part is? She said quietly. Even if we can't prove anything, I know the truth now. I know my marriage was a sham. That the man I lived with for 12 years was lying to me, using me, and calling me an idiot behind my back. Her voice wavered. How do I live with that now, Amari? One day at a time, he simply replied. At first it will hurt a lot, then a little less, then even less, and one day you'll wake up and realize the pain is gone. That's how it is with all wounds, physical and emotional. Sounds like a quote from a psychology book. Zendaya smiled faintly. It's from personal experience. Amari also smiled, but sadly. I went through a betrayal, too. My ex-wife left me for my best friend. Cliché, like a daytime drama, but it doesn't hurt any less. You never told me? Zendaya said, surprised. You never asked. He shrugged. Everyone has their scars, Zendaya, but you know what? I learned that they make us stronger. Or at least more interesting. Amari, Zendaya suddenly straightened up. I have a chance to change everything now. In what way? I got the promotion this morning, remember? I'm the head of marketing now with a serious raise. Now I can pay the mortgage myself. I don't need Killian. What about his share of the condo? Amari reminded her. To hell with that condo! Zendaya waved her hand. We'll sell it, split the money. I'd rather rent a room and know that he's not around. That... She couldn't find the right word and just waved her hand. And how will you handle it? Amari asked cautiously. Will you tell him straight up that you know everything? I don't know, Zendaya answered honestly. Not yet. First, I need to make sure Grandma is okay. Let's go to the hospital. But they won't let us in, Amari reminded her. It's late. They will, Zendaya said confidently, starting the engine. Ms. Beatrice said Grandma was conscious when they took her. That means she'll ask about me, and she'll be waiting. And if they don't let us in officially, we'll go unofficial. You said you'd always be there. Always, Amari nodded seriously. When they arrived at the hospital, it was already dark. Zendaya nervously glanced at her phone. Killian still hadn't called. Strange. Usually, if she was late, he called every half hour. Did he not even notice her absence? Or did he notice but assume she was at work, as she had promised this morning? I'm going to find out what room Grandma is in, Zendaya said, getting out of the car. I'll go with you. Amari also got out. No, better if I go alone. Less attention. Zendaya walked decisively toward the main entrance. How many times had she passed through those doors, visiting colleagues, relatives, and friends? But today, everything was different. Today, her grandmother was inside, and perhaps not by accident. The stern nurse at the reception desk looked up at her tiredly. Visiting hours ended 2 hours ago. Come back tomorrow from 9 to 12. I understand, but my grandmother was just admitted today. Zendaya tried to speak calmly. Elara Adaya, suspected stroke. I have to see her, even for 5 minutes. The rules are the same for everyone. The nurse didn't even look at the computer. Come back tomorrow. Zendaya felt a familiar irritation bubbling up inside her. In any other situation, she would have turned and left, but too much was at stake now. Listen, she lowered her voice and leaned toward the window. I have reason to believe my grandmother is in danger, that she might have been poisoned. The nurse finally looked up from her papers and stared intently at Zendaya. Poisoned? Are you serious? Absolutely. Zendaya tried to pour all her conviction into the word. Please, I need to see the head of the department or the doctor on call. This is critically important. Wait here. The nurse got up and disappeared behind a door labeled Staff Only. Zendaya nervously fiddled with her purse strap. What if they don't believe her? What if they send her away? What if... Hello, I'm Dr. Evelyn Stone, the doctor on call. A middle-aged woman in a white coat appeared before her. You're Elara Adaya's relative? The granddaughter. Zendaya immediately got to the point. How is she? What's wrong? Her condition is stable, but we had to sedate her. She was very agitated upon admission. Agitated? Zendaya repeated. In what sense? Was she yelling that someone was trying to kill her? The doctor spoke calmly but carefully observed Zendaya's reaction. She mentioned a Kylian. Is that your husband? Zendaya gasped. Yes, until now, yes. Listen, she leaned forward. You have to test her for toxins in her blood. I think someone genuinely tried to poison her. Dr. Stone frowned. Do you have grounds for such serious suspicions? I do. Zendaya nodded. My husband visited Grandma today, and a few hours later she got sick, and I accidentally found out that he had been planning to get rid of her for a long time to get her condo. You realize that is a very serious accusation? The doctor asked. I understand, and I'm ready to go to the police, but first, I need to make sure Grandma is okay. Dr. Stone paused, then nodded. All right. I'll order additional tests, and I'll allow you a brief visit, but only for 10 minutes, and only if she's awake. Thank you, Zendaya breathed out. Thank you so much. The doctor led her to the intensive care unit. In front of the door, Zendaya paused for a moment, gathering her courage. Mama Elara looked so small and fragile on the hospital bed, entangled in wires and tubes. Her gray hair was spread across the pillow, her face drawn, but even now, her features showed the innate dignity for which her grandmother was always respected and slightly feared by everyone who knew her. Grandma, Zendaya whispered, pulling a stool close to the bed and gently touching the wrinkled hand. Grandma, it's me, Zendaya. The old woman slowly opened her eyes. For a few seconds, she stared at the ceiling, then turned her head. Zendaya. Her voice was weak, but her mind was clear. You came? Of course I came. Zendaya felt a lump rise in her throat. As soon as I found out you were here. What happened, Grandma? Mama Elara tried to sit up, but Zendaya gently held her down. Stay put. Just tell me what happened. The old woman swallowed with difficulty. Your Kylian came. He brought tea, said it was from you, that you had an important meeting and couldn't get away. And then? Zendaya tensed up. Then I started feeling sick. The room started spinning. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would jump out of my chest, her grandmother gasped. He wanted to kill me, Zendaya. I heard him talking on the phone when he thought I was in the bathroom. About a nursing home where old people die like flies. Zendaya went cold. The same words she had heard from Kylian's lips a few hours ago. Grandma, she squeezed the old woman's hand. I know everything. I won't let him hurt you. Never, I promise. Mama Alara smiled weakly. You were always a smart girl, my pride. But you weren't lucky in husbands, just like me back then. Zendaya remembered her grandmother's story. She became a widow young, then married a second time, but quickly divorced when she realized the man was only interested in her house. Like mother, like daughter, Zendaya thought sadly. Don't worry, she said aloud. We'll fix everything. Your health is the most important thing now. I'll handle Killian. At that moment, the door opened and Dr. Stone walked in. Visiting time is ending, she said softly. Ilara Adaya needs rest. Just one more minute, Zendaya pleaded, and leaning toward her grandmother, she whispered, I'll be back tomorrow, and you're going to be fine now. The doctors will take care of you. I arranged for it. My girl. Her grandmother gently stroked her cheek. Don't do anything foolish. He's a dangerous man. I'll be careful, Zendaya promised, and kissing her grandmother on the forehead, she left the room. Amari was waiting for her in the hall. Seeing the look on her face, he asked anxiously, What happened? It's exactly as we thought, Zendaya replied quietly. Killian tried to poison Grandma, and she heard everything about the nursing home, about the old people who die like flies, the exact things I overheard this afternoon. Damn, Amari exhaled. What now? Now, Zendaya straightened her shoulders. We go to the police. Zendaya and Amari left the police precinct well after midnight. They filed a report, but without the toxicology results the hospital promised to deliver, no serious action was expected. So, what happens next? Amari asked when they got into the car. Zendaya leaned back tiredly. I'm not going home. That's for sure. You can stay at my place, Amari offered. The sofa in the living room is comfortable. Thank you. Zendaya gratefully touched his arm. But I need to grab some things from the condo first, and honestly, I want to talk to Killian, right now. Are you sure? Amari sounded worried. After everything you found out? I'm sure, Zendaya said firmly. I need to look him in the eye, tell him everything I think of him, and get my documents, jewelry, and laptop with my work files. It's important. Then I'm going with you, Amari stated decisively. No, Zendaya shook her head. I have to do this myself, but you can wait for me downstairs in the car. If I'm not out in 30 minutes, call the police. Amari wanted to argue, but only nodded when he saw the look on her face. All right, but be careful. When Zendaya and Amari arrived at the condo, the light was on in the 5th floor window. Killian was home. Zendaya took a deep breath, trying to calm the trembling in her hands. 30 minutes, Amari reminded her. If anything goes wrong, call immediately. Agreed? Zendaya got out of the car and walked toward the entrance. In the elevator, she looked at her reflection in the mirror. Pale face, messy hair, eyes red from crying. You look terrible, Zendaya Adaya, she thought. But inside, beneath the layer of fatigue and fear, a strange resolve was taking root. She had nothing to regret. She had lived for 12 years with a man who didn't love her. But now she knew the truth, and that knowledge gave her freedom. The front door opened the moment she inserted the key. Killian stood on the threshold, freshly shaven, in home pants and a fresh shirt, as if he were about to go out. Where have you been? He asked instead of greeting her. I tried to call you. Your phone was off. Zendaya walked silently past him into the condo. Inside, everything was as usual, clean, neat, sterile, their shared home, which had never been a real home. You didn't answer my call this morning, she said, turning to her husband. About the firing. Oh, that. Killian waved his hand. I was busy, and what is there to say? You'll find another job. I won't. Zendaya allowed herself a slight smile. Because I wasn't fired. Killian frowned. I don't understand. I was promoted, Zendaya said calmly. I'm the head of marketing now, with a salary increase of 1.5 times the old one. I decided to play a joke on you, say I lost my job, and then surprise you with the good news. Funny, right? Funny, Killian said without a trace of a smile.
Why would you joke like that?
I don't know, Zendaya shrugged. I guess I wanted to test your reaction. You know what's most interesting? You didn't even call to find out the details, didn't ask how I was. You didn't react at all to the news that your wife was suddenly unemployed. Killian shrugged. I was busy. Besides, I knew you'd handle it. You always handle things. Yes, Zendaya nodded. I always handle things, but today I had to handle the fact that my husband tried to poison my grandmother. She's in the hospital, Killian. Killian's face froze. What kind of nonsense is that? Don't pretend, Zendaya said tiredly. I know everything. About your plans to send Grandma to the nursing home where old people die like flies. About your girlfriend you discussed it with. About how you went to Mama Alara today with poisoned tea. You've lost your mind. Killian took a step back. What poisoned tea? I just visited your grandmother, brought her some treats. She's your only family. I wanted to show I cared. How caring, Zendaya smiled bitterly. Yet somehow, after your visit, Grandma ended up in the hospital. And you know what? She heard your phone conversation about the nursing home, so don't deny it. Killian's face changed. The mask of the caring husband dropped, revealing cold calculation. Prove it, he hissed. You can't prove anything. The old woman is senile. She's over 80. Who will believe her? They'll believe the results of the tests, Zendaya countered, which they are doing at the hospital now, and they'll also believe the recording of our conversation, which I'm making on my phone right now. She took her smartphone out of her pocket, the red recording indicator blinking on the screen. It was a bluff. Zendaya had only turned on the voice recorder after entering the condo, and it couldn't have recorded a confession of poisoning. But Killian didn't know that. He turned pale. You can't. I can, Zendaya cut him off. And I already have. The police report is filed. Grandma gave a statement, and now this recording. Do you know how much time they give for attempted murder, especially when the victim is an elderly person? Killian slowly sank into a chair, covering his face with his hands. It was all her, he mumbled dully. Veronica. She came up with the plan for the nursing home. I didn't want to. I just agreed. But you brought the tea with the surprise, Zendaya said harshly. So don't shift the blame. She walked into the bedroom and pulled a small suitcase from the closet. She quickly packed the essentials, documents, a few changes of clothes, her laptop, the pictures of her parents. She grabbed her makeup bag and toothbrush from the bathroom. In the living room, she took down their wedding photo from the wall, removed it from the frame, and tore it in half. What are you doing? Killian watched her bewildered. I'm leaving, Zendaya simply replied. We'll get the divorce through the court. We'll sell the condo and split the money. I don't care. Take your share and disappear wherever you want. Just don't come near Grandma. I swear I will put you in prison. You can't just leave like this. Killian's voice took on a pleading note. We've been together for 12 years. We were fine. You were fine? Maybe. Zendaya zipped up the suitcase. I wasn't. And you know what? I'm even grateful to you. For what? Killian was taken aback. For opening my eyes. She looked him straight in the eyes. It's better to know the bitter truth than to live a lie. Goodbye, Killian. And yes, don't forget, you'll have to pay the mortgage yourself now. I'm unemployed, just like you wanted. With those words, Zendaya picked up her suitcase and walked out, quietly closing the door behind her. Amari was waiting for her by the entrance. Seeing the suitcase, he silently took it and put it in the trunk. Everything all right? He asked when they got into the car. Now? Yes. Zendaya took a deep breath, feeling an invisible weight drop from her shoulders. You know, I suddenly realized I'm free, for the first time in 12 years. And what will you do with your freedom? Amari smiled. First, I'm going to get some sleep. Zendaya smiled too. And tomorrow, I'll visit Grandma. Then I'll start my new job. Head of the department, by the way. And after that, we'll see. They drove through the night in Atlanta. The city was shining with lights, as if promising new opportunities, new paths, a new life. Zendaya looked out the window and thought about how strange everything had turned out. This morning, she planned to play a joke on her husband by faking a firing, and by evening, her life had been turned upside down. If my great-grandfather had known that his brownstone would be the cause of such drama, Zendaya thought with irony. Mama Alara often told the story of how her father, an engineer who built half the city's bridges, received the deed personally from the mayor. Those were the days, her grandmother would sigh, when people were valued for their deeds, not their money. "What are you thinking about?" Amari asked, noticing her smile. "About how everything has changed over the last few years," Zendaya replied, "and about how some things never change." "Like what?" "Like how you only know your true friends in times of trouble." She gratefully touched his arm. "Thank you for everything." "Always," he simply replied. "Where are we going?" "I don't know," Zendaya admitted honestly. "Can I stay at your place for a couple of days, at least until I find a short-term rental or decide what to do next?" "Of course," Amari nodded. "Just a warning, I have a cat. He's mean and arrogant, like all cats." "I love cats," Zendaya laughed, "especially the mean and arrogant ones." She suddenly felt light for the first time in a long time, as if she had shed not only the burden of a failed marriage, but also all her fears, doubts, and self-doubt. Ahead of her was a new life, unpredictable, perhaps difficult, but real, her own life. "And you know what?" she said, looking up at the night sky. "I'm actually grateful for this day. The failed joke turned out to be the biggest stroke of luck." "Every cloud has a silver lining," Amari smiled, "as my grandma always used to say." "As all grandmas always used to say," Zendaya smiled too. "And you know what? They were right, as always." The car turned onto a quiet street, carrying them away from the past and toward the future. What it would hold was unknown, but there was a certain beauty, a promise, a hope in that uncertainty, and Zendaya was ready to face the challenge. Did you like the story, and which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.